right, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. It's October 15th, 2024. I'm Trey. That's Mark. How's it going, Mark?
Good, Trey. How you doing today, bud? Doing good?
I'm hanging in there. Yep.
Yeah. Early voting started today, and just a
hmm
little bit of news before we get to the show. Early voting today started today in Georgia and North Carolina. Don't have any numbers from North Carolina yet, but in Georgia, 252,000 people vote or ballots were cast today, according to the Georgia Secretary of State's office. He tweeted, "Spectacular turnout. We're running out of adjectives for this. The previous first day record was 136,000 in 2020, so they have almost doubled the first day record, um, which is good for liberals, progressives, leftists, however
Yeah.
you want to put it, because if they more people voting is bad for conservatives, always has
Right.
been.
I was going to say, but specific, isn't it also maybe not early, but the reason they hated these things for a long time is typically like early voting and mail in voting and that type of stuff tends to skew them, doesn't it?
Well,
Like,
also it makes voting easier, so more people vote.
right.
Like if you can't make it on the Tuesday of the election, then you're just fucked, right?
Right.
So,
And
so
anytime
but
more people can vote, it helps the Democrats, like you said.
some added context here: Georgia did make some rule changes to get rid of or like ballot drop boxes and stuff, or to limit their. So like a lot of these votes are moved over from other ways people are voting, so it's not like just explicit. So people can push towards this, which if look. If Republicans are going to be inherently suspicious of mail voting, but not in-person voting, do it early in-person voting, fine workaround, whatever, if it keeps the Republic from, blowing up in a hellfire because they think the mail is inherently satanic or whatever.
Yeah, did you get your ballot
Yep.
already? We got our, yeah. Might need to go
So,
ahead and knock that out, get that
yeah,
done.
if y'all aren't familiar with California ballots, they're like taking the SATs. It's like 400 pages of filling
They
in
are.
dots.
Yeah.
uh, Other Georgia election news. We got asked about like a Georgia election chicanery in one of our Q&As recently, and there was a resolution for a case today. Basically, the Georgia State Election Board was trying to change the rules where local county election. The lawsuit was basically alleging they could like throw out results if they didn't like them, and this judge today was like, "No, the law says shall. You shall certify. You have to certify. You must. It's mandatory to certify election results. You can't not do it. Your role is ceremonial. You're not the king of America because you got appointed to a county election board."
Right. But let me ask you,
Yeah.
let's just say one of those crazies in one of those positions when the time comes is just like, I don't care what that judge says. I'm not doing it because reasons. And then then what happens, because then that just gets other judges involved, or like does a
Mhm.
person get like arrested immediately, or then you just start going up the courts? Because obviously courts are a crapshoot.
Right. I mean, like they people tried this in 2020, and because the law said shall, they were just like the judge said nope, you certify it. So they had to
hmm
certify, and some people who resisted just was okay, I'll certify. But the judge in this case, his name's Robert McBurney, trying to discuss like I hate law stuff so much, even though I find it entertaining. But like the word shall is a very clear meaning. That's why they write laws with the word shall in it.
Right.
And he made the point. He talked about Gandalf from Lord of the Rings saying, "You shall not pass." Like it's not conditional. It's like you're not, you motherfucker, you're not getting past me. It's not like
hmm
so. Gandalf is officially part of the court record in this in our
Yeah,
election
I
law.
like it when they spice it up like that, throwing little pop culture references and stuff like that. Show a little humanity, get away from the legalese for a bit.
Yeah.
It's fun.
One more fun story before we get to the show. Yesterday was Columbus Day,
hmm
and
Well,
there's a story.
depends on who you talk to, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Columbus Day on the Council of Indigenous Day. Some scientists dug up some remains purported to be Christopher Columbus for whatever reason, compared it to like some. They proved it was him by comparing it to alleged descendants of his, and then determined that Christopher Columbus is Jewish. Seems like a bad break
Nice.
for them. They've had a lot of PR problems lately to start with.
Yeah.
But, but like this quote floored me. I didn't realize this. Columbus was traditionally believed to have come from Genoa, Italy, though historians had theorized him as being a Spanish Jew or perhaps Greek, Basque, Portuguese, or British. I didn't know it was undetermined by historians that Columbus was actually Italian.
Right, because they love
It's a
him. They're real big
right.
into. Yeah, he really hits for them.
The idea that he's Italian is apparently based upon some like a vague mention in his own writings, but of course he was a fucking stupid liar.
hmm
And also he was married to a wealthy Portuguese woman, which doesn't make sense to historians because the Portuguese apparently hated the Italians. So, um, but anyway, You think about like I've decided to give up. Like every day, every year Columbus Day, I think I've done different versions of this rant on this show every fucking year. I've decided to accept it as my favorite holiday because it's so stupid that we've dedicated an entire holiday to a guy whose biggest accomplishment was being one of the biggest fucking idiots on the planet.
Right.
The Earth. Nobody thought the Earth was flat. He didn't prove shit. He thought the Earth was small. He got lost. And then the origin. We talked about. Did we talk about the origin of Columbus Day on this show before?
I don't know if we talk. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know if we talked about it on here or not. So go ahead.
So, in 1890, the police chief in New Orleans got murdered. And his dying utterance, trying to say who killed him, he used a racial epithet for Italians. All right? So, New Orleans police rounded up 19 Italians, I think, who were all found innocent because all they had was a racial epithet from a dying man's last word. That didn't hit for a bunch of good old boys in New Orleans. They went down to the courthouse and lynched 11 Italians.
Yeah.
All right? Catholics were a growing voting bloc and it caused an international incident with Italy and the Pope and shit. So Benjamin Harrison was like, we'll make it a holiday in celebration of Italians. Columbus Day was originally woke.
Right.
It was originally woke. It was woke pandering for identity politics for Italians. And now it turns out he's not even fucking Italian. The whole thing is so goddamn dumb.
Yeah, it's funny that that one admittedly horrific thing happened to the Italians. I mean, I'm sure there was other persecution, but that one big thing got like a response. Or it's like, well, we'll give them something. And it's like, meanwhile, the natives or black people, and
Right.
like centuries of atrocities. And it's like,
Yeah, unfortunately, Native Americans are not a big voting bloc for some reason.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
Probably nobody's fault. Anyway, let's honor Christopher Columbus.
Well, I was saying, I was thinking the video I made about it yesterday, I was saying, it's like, look, because part of my whole thing was like, it's become a right-wing talking point, obviously. All these people like pretending they'll fight tooth and nail to put their lives on the line to defend Columbus Day, right? And it's like, I never remember anyone giving even the tiniest of shits about Columbus Day my whole life, right? Because I didn't grow up around no Italian people, but I'm from a very red part of the country. And I was just like, if it is true that Italians have always been into it, it's like a special day to them or whatever. If that's the case, then like, it don't need to be a federal holiday. Just turn it into some like St. Patrick's Day type shit where we all get like cartoonishly Italian on that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just have a big spaghetti day, and
drink red wine and Super Mario outfits or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But like
that,
Italians, first of all, Columbus isn't Italian, like probably isn't Italian like we just discussed about, but Italians have Amerigo Vespucci, which America's named after. Why can't we have Amerigo Day?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe they'll figure it out one of these days. All right, but let's continue. Producer Laura is with us behind the scenes. This is Weekly Skews. Before we go on, I want to remind y'all, of course, of a few things. You should come and see me live doing stand-up comedy. I really think you should. And the way you can do that is you go to TreyCrowder.com and check out my upcoming tour dates, see if I'm going to be near you. I'm going to Durango, Colorado, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Flagstaff, Arizona the next 3 days. And we got Appleton, Wisconsin, Maryland, Philly, Newark, Phoenix, and a bunch of Northern California dates. And then Christmas back home in Nashville and Chicago. That's the rest of this year, but tons more in 2025 already on the books. Go to TreyCrowder.com. Come and see me. Also, if you enjoy this program and would like to show your support, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. You can go to weeklyskews.com/more, or you can just go to Patreon and search for my name. Either way works. $5 a month get you access to 2 full-length bonus episodes where we talk about things that come up in between the shows, or we do Q&As, answer questions from y'all, things of that nature. If you like this show, you'll like that show because it's just this show, but we just do it again on a different day. So you get like 2 more of these for $5 a month and support the show and get some more Skews in your life. Now, as for the show tonight, we'll be talking about, among other things, the state of affairs in Florida, which is not great. People still reeling from the effects of 2 hurricanes, are also having to deal with an openly malicious governor who seems hell-bent on making their lives as much worse as possible. So we'll get into that.
Talk about the abortion ballot initiative and Ron DeSantis' efforts to declare himself dictator of Florida.
Yeah. So, but we got some other stuff along the way, including, of course, the Daily Dumbass. Laura, please, if you have that graphic for us. Tonight's DD, anyone who doesn't yet have their hunting license to shoot police. It's police season in Colorado, everybody.
Was once tranquil. You were once tranquil. In Colorado, the gang even got a green light to shoot police officers. Did you know that the gang got the okay to kill your police? You know that. Right?
Like
By the way, that's the New York
Colorado.
Times.
What, dude?
From
What
who?
planet?
Well, also
Sorry.
he says right at the end there, right when we cut out, he says that's not even me saying that. That's the New York Times. Like, do you know what actual thing in the New York Times he's referencing or something?
No.
Okay, so yeah.
But like, what planet do you live on where like they think they've made killing police illegal, and the whole crowd goes, "That sounds right," and they go, "Boo!" The concept of police murder.
Yeah.
It's like I just don't know what to make of. We're talking about unreality in the dumbass segment because like I just can't wrap my. I did almost 10 years of this. I can't even wrap my mind around it. That was an event in Aurora, Colorado over the weekend, where Stephen Miller, Trump's old like ghoul, opened for him and just had pictures of immigrants on stage and led the crowd in booing the pictures of immigrants. And
just pictures of people
Yes.
who came.
Yeah.
He just points at it and they just boo.
Yeah.
That's the you know what that it's like the what was it called, the 2 minutes hate, or the in 1984, the book 1984, they have a scheduled hate period every day where they'll go to the same place and just hate together. And that's like part of, how Big Brother operates. This is like, they're literally doing that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of shit from that book. Obviously, it's kind of famous and prophetic, but
George Orwell, famously so anti-fascist, he went to Spain to kill some. So he had fascists pretty well pegged. But like at this point, I would settle for 2 minutes of hate a day. That seems like it would be an upgrade. They were booing these pictures of my immigrants, but like I don't know that they're immigrants to the United States. I just know that he said they're immigrants to the United States. They could have been like the roster of Real Madrid or some shit, as far as I fucking know.
Right.
And like this whole like, okay, I want to show this Real America News clip from that rally, because this is just like, if you guys know what these people are up to, this is like fucking insane.
Playing two mugshots of two of the most heinous TDA Venezuelan gang members, and these people, they are so evil. They are not your run-of-the-mill criminal. They are people that are satanic. They are involved in human sacrifice. They are raping men, women, and children, especially underage children.
People who come from some of those Catholic countries on the planet are satanic and involved in human sacrifice. And honestly, we could use some hardworking satanic immigrants to revitalize our once thriving heavy metal industry. If you guys got some, you can send our way.
I've been waiting on the devil to make a comeback for a while now. Honestly, we need a little more Satan in this country. I think, as far as you ask me. I mean, not the like cutting hearts out kind or whatever, but just the hard rocking kind.
Yeah,
party animal Satan. That's what I like.
The biting the head off a bat while you're high on cocaine kind of Satan.
Yeah,
kind of
Satan. That's what's up. But yeah, no, this shit is crazy. The fear mongering. Also, you said it was Real American News, but I think it's actually Right Side
Broadcast.
So, how many of those things are there now? That like different right wing outlets like that have popped up over there? Because there's like Newsmax, right? And there's this one, Right Side. Obviously, Fox News, the granddaddy. But then there's the Real America one or whatever. And there's probably more. And they're like.
Well, Fox went woke because they called Arizona for Joe Biden. So then that begat Newsmax. Then Newsmax lost a $1 billion lawsuit to Dominion. So then they had to go woke. So then they keep like an evolutionary chart of fucking bigger degenerates as they get sued into oblivion.
Devolutionary chart.
There you go.
Get more troglodyte. Anyway, this shit's crazy. Fear mongering to the nth degree. But
yeah, that wasn't even Trump's weirdest rally of the last few days. He had a rally last night in Pennsylvania where two of his supporters passed out, fainted in separate incidents because I guess they didn't have the air conditioner on in this hot-ass warehouse. And he called them fat as they were being carted out on stretchers. And can you imagine? We were joking about like the guy bleeding out of the Butler shooting as the crowd cheered fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
Like they're literally happy he got shot, and then you pass out. And the guy, I saw the picture of the guy, like he was a pretty heavy dude. They're carrying him out in a stretcher with his shirt off because he's having a cardiac event because I guess they cut his shirt off to hook up an EKG or whatever. And Trump's telling him to lose weight. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this whole thing's fucking. They don't care about anybody, much less themselves.
No, I know. It's just he's like openly antagonistic to them sometimes, and they just love it. They just eat it up. It's so funny. Like there was that other headline. Well, Corey, he threaded ahead, but it was from a while ago now. It was like kind of a big story at the time, but the headline just says something like Trump Trump visits restaurant, promises food for everyone, then leaves without paying or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like such a perfect metaphor for his whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just now promised a big donation to hurricane relief in Florida, and as far as anyone knows, didn't do it. And maybe he did anonymously, but why would you announce it publicly, then do it anonymously? But about the people passing out at Trump's rallies, one of the, I forget even which one of these psychotic right-wing news networks, one of the hosts had a theory, if you've got this video, Laura.
So as we get ready for Brian Glenn to come in and give us his thoughts, since he's in the building, I want to bring in Amanda Head to talk about some of what we just witnessed. Amanda, that was strange. And you know, Brian had raised the question to me that, is there any possibility that the new protest now is fake medical emergencies? I don't want to say that that's what happened here, but he doesn't understand why. He said it really isn't that hot inside this building. So a bizarre situation. So as we get ready for Brian Glenn to come in, give us.
I just want to hear a reaction.
Yeah,
So,
I don't even. This is one of those where it's like, to what end? So they're saying that like Antifa, but particularly like type 1 or type 2 diabetic 60-year-old Antifa undercover agents, like 2 of them, infiltrated this rally and faked a medical incident, faked passing out in the middle of it to end it all, like, because they thought then the rally couldn't happen. Like, what's the?
well, they did successfly end it, but not by their own choice, by Trump's choice, because this is supposed to be an audience Q&A. All right,
Right, dude. This I was gonna ask you about this when I saw this, but I saw it on the outline. So
Kristi Noem flew in from South Dakota for this to host this thing, and then they took 4 questions. These 2 people passed out. Trump gave up doing any of the cues, and then just had the DJ play his playlist.
yeah.
For 40 minutes, we just kind of bopped around on stage, and
He's
everybody
like,
looked at him.
let's just hear some music, right? During the they just turn music on, and he just stands there while music plays in front of him for 40 minutes. It's like, I mean, truly
Like, he's
strange, dude.
Clearly lost his mind,
Right,
although
right.
it doesn't seem to matter to anybody. But like, so he played some Guns N' Roses. This is if you want some insight into what hits for Trump. They played some Guns N' Roses. They played Ave Maria. They played Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor, because I guess she's too dead to sue him over it. Right. And then they played the Rufus Wainwright version of Hallelujah from the Shrek soundtrack. Oh my god. Just like, I can't, like, Rufus Wainwright put out a cease and desist today, and I was like, but like, why is one of Trump's favorite 8 songs that he played on a loop for these people from the Shrek soundtrack?
Yeah, I mean, the Shrek soundtrack is, pretty banging, to be fair. It's a pretty sweet soundtrack.
Right.
But it's hard for me to imagine Trump enjoying, like, literally any kind of music, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't know. I just can't see him being like, God, I love this band. Like, no matter who it is, it just don't seem to fit his personality to me.
Yeah, and this guy, like, he also he had a rally in California over the weekend where, like, it was near Coachella somewhere. It wasn't at Coachella, but they bussed people in because it's in the middle of a field, like a music festival. But Trump didn't pay the buses, so the buses didn't come back to pick people up.
He just left them out there.
So he just left his supporters in the middle of a desert. He calls his supporters fat when they're being carted out in stretchers.
It's so funny.
And they still believe,
It's just one of those things where it's been said a million times about him, but it's like, if it wasn't for like the existential threat I believe he poses to American democracy and the seemingly very real possibility that he'll, could be put in that position to do so again, like it would all be just so genuinely funny, so much of this stuff. I mean, it still is a lot of it, but like his whole, how insane him and his followers are, how stupid so many of them are, the way he treats them, the scams he runs on them, all this stuff. It's like, it would be all, pretty enjoyable, really, if there wasn't, that whole other added aspect to it, where it's terrifying at the same time. But
if he was just the subject like an actor doing a mockumentary, like a Borat type thing, it would really hit for me. But unfortunately, he's not self-aware at all. So, but like, no matter what he does to them, people believe every word out of his mouth like it's a fucking goddamn gospel. So to briefly update the hurricane. So Milton hit last week. We we got extremely lucky that the course shifted slightly south. The wind speed dropped a little bit, and enough people evacuated. The last thing I saw, like I saw like a dozen or 20 people were killed, which sucks, but it's not nearly the damage from Helene or whatever what people were expecting.
Yeah. Lieutenant Dan made it through, right?
Yeah, the meth head on the boat. Yeah, who refused to evacuate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
meth heads find a way, dude. So
yeah, but you can't kill a meth head, dude.
No.
So talk about his supporters believing dumb bullshit, the dangerous side of it. All right. A couple days ago, North Carolina authorities arrested an armed man for threats against FEMA workers. Now, FEMA had pulled out of an entire county, out of Rutherford County, North Carolina, because there were rumors circulating that a militia was coming after them.
I mean, why? For what? Like, because, I mean, what is it again that they think that FEMA's doing? Well, they think FEMA's like engaging in open warfare with real patriots or something. It's like,
well, which part of it they believe is like depends on like, I mean, it's a real like it's like a buffet of conspiracy theories. It could have been that they think like that the FEMA was like preventing people from evacuating. That was a conspiracy theory in Florida. There was a conspiracy theory in Florida that FEMA was going to prevent people from coming back home after they evacuated so their land could be stolen. In North Carolina, there's one of the conspiracy theories is that the purpose of using the weather machine to flood western North Carolina was so the government could steal lithium deposits because there's a lithium mine in the area. There's also that the FEMA's intentionally withholding aid from rural counties because they're Trump supporters. Like, so take your dealer's choice, man. What this guy thought. But yeah, so they got him before he shot anybody, thank God. But yeah, if you want one example of how conspiracy theories stop people from being able to do the jobs they need to help people, here's a pretty solid example.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I think maybe I said this last week too when they were first talking about the FEMA stuff, but it's just like, it's like medical professionals during COVID. You know what I mean? I just always thought that had to be so incredibly frustrating. Like you're like genuinely doing your best to try to help these people, and so many of them spit in your face for it, call you a pawn of the deep state and all this type of shit. And now it's happening with FEMA workers too. Seems to be a pretty thankless job going into places like this and doing your best to help. And then now like your life is threatened. They want to kill you for it. It's just crazy.
But also, like if a COVID patient wants to spit in your face, obviously, besides the danger of giving you COVID, making you sick, and maybe killing you, like if that person refuses treatment, fine, your choice, you die, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But this is a person stopping other people from getting aid.
Right.
Like it's like if me and my family need bottled water and blankets, and but I can't get them because FEMA had to pull out because some third party psycho was threatening them. That's like more unfair to me,
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure.
So another thing that's been happening is meteorologists all over the Southwest were getting death threats for reporting the weather.
I mean, do they really think if you kill the weatherman, the weather just can't happen? Like if the news don't have the weather and the weatherman don't say it's going to storm, then there can't be a storm? Is that what they think? Like I don't.
They think that the meteorologists know that the government controls the weather and they're lying about it.
Aha, okay. They're part of it.
Yeah, and so one meteorologist had to tweet, a woman named Katie Nicolau tweeted, "Murdering meteorologists won't stop hurricanes." I can't believe I just had to type that. But so we've gone from old man yells at cloud to mob threatens to lynch science man for noticing cloud. The main reason I want to talk about this is like, it's not like there aren't fucking shitty conspiracies in America. They're just not magical, right? Like my old thing, I know I've said it on the show before, is if you want to read a real life conspiracy theory, just read the cover of the fucking business section or any coverage of Congress, because they're right there laid out in front of you. I don't know why people find this stuff, which is just as evil, too boring to think about. But if you want some conspiracies that are real life, here you go. Here's a headline from just last week. Amid Hurricane Milton, Florida Republicans aim to block climate emergency declaration because they're in the payroll of the fossil fuel industry. All right. Last year, Ron DeSantis denied $1 billion in federal funding from the Biden administration to update infrastructure and roads, especially in the Tampa region, because he felt it was, quote, to promote a political agenda. Now, imagine the funding came with strings to raise compliance standards, so it would have cost builders more money, right? There you go.
Yeah,
you want to know why your bridge is collapsing? It's because Ron DeSantis made it so they're weaker.
I mean, it's also like just the sort of idea that it's like, well, if we let them spend this money to improve our own infrastructure, then people might want to vote for them for doing a thing that helped, and we can't have that. Would be promoting a political agenda. See, it's unfair. Right. They're just doing this to like get people on their side or whatever. So we have to keep that from happening, which is just keeps anything from ever being done.
I don't think
in the first place.
I don't think that's it, because I think corrupt Republicans are like 30 years ahead of Democrats in realizing that voters do not vote at all based upon policy. So no one would have noticed that the bridges actually withstood hurricanes instead of collapsing. And if they did withstand the hurricane, Ron DeSantis could have just taken credit for strengthening the bridges or whatever.
Right. But so what's the political agenda that's being promoted by allowing it to go through?
That climate change exists.
Okay.
Why would we have to strengthen our infrastructure because of climate change?
It's fucking old no climate change or whatever.
No, but it's part of the it's part of the Green New Deal, and it's part of the Green New Deal explicitly, right?
Yeah.
So you can't. It has green in it. We can't do it because then we'd be admitting that it's real, even if we're improving our own bridges. Just this past May, speaking of which, DeSantis signed a bill that deleted climate change from state law. That law took place July 1st. So good news, everyone. Climate change did not impact Florida at all, if you just read the law. This example from 2017 fucking blew my mind because it has a twist ending to it. So in 2017, Trump and his team overturned an Obama administration rule requiring that infrastructure projects, including roads and bridges, be designed to withstand the consequences of climate change. Now, the amazing thing about this policy was it had bipartisan support, including for free market economic groups, Republicans in Congress. Like Republican members of Congress went out of the way to praise the new standard because typically Republicans didn't like unfunded mandates. But if you want us to meet a new compliance standard, as long as the government pays for it, fucking more power to you. It's also a way to generate construction and get more jobs, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Trump and Elaine Chao, Mitch McConnell's wife / Trump's transportation secretary, crushed it basically just because the concept of regulations are bad. Now, the reason no one remembers that this happened is because the speech he was going to give about it was the same one right after the Unite the Right riot in Charlottesville, where Trump said that Nazis were very fine people on both sides.
Right. Which is how it always goes with Trump, right? It's like there's just too much bad shit and too much insanity for anyone to possibly keep up with all of it or stay appropriately mad at some of it because new shit just always comes along and replaces it, and then before long you just can't even remember what all happened.
This is the perfect example of what you're talking about, which I'm choosing to call a Trump scandal shit sandwich, because nobody remembers the fullness of his nihilism because he did something else stupid and racist in the middle of it.
Right.
Which is easy to encapsulate. Like Trump sabotaging building policy so more people drown in hurricanes is difficult to explain to people. Trump said Nazis are good is memorable and easy to say. All right. Here's another example of capitalism being the real problem that people want to get conspiratorial about. The American version of corrupt capitalism anyway. There was a point where it seemed like the White House might have to declare a national emergency over IV fluid shortages caused by Helene. Because 60% of U.S. IVs are manufactured at one factory in Marion, North Carolina, which is wiped out by the goddamn hurricane. So if you go to the hospital and they don't have an IV for you, it's because the U.S. government allowed a company to basically set itself up as a monopoly so they could control the market share, and they put their plant right in the path of the middle of a fucking hurricane. All right?
Yeah,
that's your conspiracy.
Some redundancy there or something, diversification of something that's that important. You know what I mean? But
there was another. I said might have to declare a state of emergency. That's because one of the other main manufacturing plants for IVs was in Florida. That plant was luckily was spared by Milton, but that's just a lucky coincidence. And like the pandemic wasn't the only time in human history that narrow monopolized supply chains without diversity or production could lead to shortages and crises, right? But we seem to have assumed it was. And like you said, this is not exactly the kind of redundancy you need in something as non-vital as fucking healthcare.
Right.
Remember,
it's also like even it just also with Helene, that whole lithium thing that they're all freaking out about or whatever. But that's part of is it processors or some kind of some kind of computery type thing, right?
Batteries, microchips, solar panels.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge percentage of the sourcing for that, for the resources needed to make a bunch of these things, and it, almost got wiped out or whatever. And it's like no one had thought, what if that happens? Then what do we do?
It's also, you don't need to fire up the weather machine and destroy all that real estate to get the lithium. You could just use eminent domain, or just force the person to take a deal to sell it on the cheap. Like, it's not like again, that's how the real conspiracy would work. Is they would just take your shit under some legal framework. They don't need to fucking fire up the DARPA machines. Remember I said there was a conspiracy theory that FEMA was blocking people from evacuating Tampa?
Yeah.
The only people I saw complain about being blocked from evacuating Tampa were because their bosses still made them come to work Tuesday night when the hurricane was.
Right.
That's just capitalism running normally. It's like if you don't come into work Tuesday night, you're fired. So then you're stuck in the path of a hurricane. That's just normal American business, right?
I mean, people literally died in East Tennessee, like directly because of that happening. At some factory, they were told, their boss told them, "No, you can't. You have to work. You'll get fired if you leave. You can't leave." And they died there. They drowned.
I saw that. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is on it, and there probably won't be. I'm not sure what legal framework you have to hold a boss accountable. Like there probably some civil violation, or OSHA could get involved, maybe. Occupational Health and Safety Administration. But as far as a criminal liability, you're basically legally allowed to kill your employees with neglect in America. There's your conspiracy. All right. Here's another one. Insurance nightmare unfolds for Florida homeowners after back-to-back hurricanes. Basically, even people who have insurance, I think we talked before about the Florida home insurance market collapsing because no one wants to pay for houses to be rebuilt in the path of fucking hurricanes that happen once a week during hurricane season. Even people who have insurance, I'll just read here from the story. Fresh off the 1-2 punch of Helene and Milton, hurricane victims in Florida, even those with insurance, face a challenge in recovery. The insurance industry is categorizing the storms as two separate events, meaning anyone who did not or could not document damage from Helene could face even greater odds that their claim would be denied if they were hit by both storms. So basically they're saying, because of the way the insurance rules are written, if you can't separate the two different damages from the two storms because you didn't get your records updated after the first storm because you only had 4 or 5 days or whatever, you're not going to be able to prove which storm caused which damage, so therefore they're going to throw away your entire fucking policy.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds pretty classic insurance company type stuff.
Also, to try to entice companies to not leave Florida, DeSantis changed the rules to lower the standards. So, there's basically no legal recourse for these people that are getting fucked by the insurance companies because DeSantis eliminated it to try to make it more profitable for insurance companies to still exist in Florida.
Right. Basically, they were like, it just wasn't a good value proposition for insurance companies given the state of climate change and all the stuff that happens in Florida to keep insuring these houses, or it was incredibly expensive. So DeSantis, part of what he did was like, well, what if we just make it where you just, they'll just pay you your premium, but you don't have to pay for anything.
Sounds like a good business.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Give you free money, and you have no legal obligation to actually insure them at all. And they were like, I guess if you're going to do that, that sounds fine.
Yeah. And even if you had, the way
he's like, see, there's no insurance problem. They're here, they're back, everything's good. Win, except for poor fucker loses his house.
Yeah. So if you have, by the way it's written, the rules are in Florida. If you have hurricane insurance but not flood insurance, you're probably fucked because the insurers have chosen to categorize Hurricane Helene as a purely flood-driven event. Mm-hmm. So good fucking luck, people of Florida. Don't know what to tell you, man. Fuck. Okay. While we're on DeSantis, let's get into the abortion stuff. You want to, Trey?
Yeah. Sure.
So this November, Florida residents will have the opportunity to vote on Amendment 4. If it passes, the measure will enshrine the right to abortion, quote, before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, quote, in Florida's Constitution. Florida is one of 9 states with a measure on the November ballot to protect access to abortion, but this is probably the most important because it's the biggest state with one. It's also the most expensive, with about $150 million spent just on ads so far. The pitch, the amendments, the idea for the amendment is broadly popular in Florida. A September poll showed the measure attracting support from 76% of voters, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And you need 60% to pass it, which is a high bar, But apparently, the bar is still low enough for Floridians to clear it by a mile. Unfortunately for them, voting does not hit for Ron DeSantis. All right? So, for context here, DeSantis has signed 2 separate abortion bans into law. The first one restricted it to 15 weeks, then 6 weeks gestation. Then the next one restricted to 6 weeks gestation, right? So he desperately wants to stop Amendment 4. So, if you want to stop it, Trey, what kind of things would you get up to, do you think?
I mean, I don't know, probably, call all these like shady, dark money, evil billionaire type dudes to help me rat fuck the whole thing in some capacity.
Yeah.
Use some like Roger Stone-ish type shit to kill it. But also, real quick, before you say what he is doing, I just want to say, like, this is exactly the type of thing that pisses me off so much. It's like he's the governor of a state, and 76% of the people in that state are like, we, the people, want this to happen. And he could just be like, well, fuck you, I don't. And I don't give a shit what you think. It's not my job to represent the will of the people. I'm just the governor of the state. You know what I mean? Like, I hate shit like this. Is like, in this type of instance, like, it shouldn't even fucking matter what Ron DeSantis thinks or what his puppet masters think or whatever, when it's so clearly favored by his actual constituents. But of course, we all know that's not how it actually works, but the shit just kills me. Like, it's not democracy, really.
I mean, like, look, there's a middle ground here where, like, yes, the ballot initiative is the will of the people and that's direct democracy, but also the will of the people was to elect fucking Ron DeSantis.
Right.
But the middle path here is to be like, yes, you guys elected me, I'm pro-life. I signed the law making it illegal. That's my position and role in this process. If you guys go around with the ballot initiative, that's your role in the process, and, like, that's the way it goes. I lose, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, I lose is not in their fucking vocabulary. Ron DeSantis has a megaphone. He can make his case. He can spend money on ads. He can go around campaigning. What he can't do, or what it seems to me immoral, is the shit he's getting up to. And yes, the first step is dark money bullshit. We'll get to pulling the guns on people later. All right. So I'm using that metaphorically as cards enforce, like the idea that when you send cops to people's houses, the implicit threat is we have guns. Right. So as far as I know, no guns have actually been pulled on people yet, but cops are going to people's houses. We'll get to that in a second. So the first thing DeSantis did was he worked with the Heritage Foundation, there's your dark money psychos, to add language to the ballot measure implying that legalizing abortion would have negative fiscal impact on the budget. All right. What they did was they got whoever runs Florida elections, they went to court to add what's called a fiscal impact note, basically like a paragraph above the ballot measure, explaining to people how actually expensive it would be to have rights. All right. The first part of the language said it would result in significantly more abortions and fewer live births in Florida, to which my answer is, yeah, that's kind of the point. It's like, did you know the ending pregnancy?
Restating what it, right.
Yeah.
What it, but the argument for the budget part, the budgetary impacts, though, it's like, how can that possibly be? Is it that like, well, we need more wage slaves, we need more worker drones, so we can't, okay, all right.
They're also lying and saying that, like, if you put a right to abortion in the Florida Constitution, that will somehow obligate the state to pay for it, which is what they're saying. I think they're probably lying, because I can't imagine that would be the case. Like, I have a right to own a gun. The government does not issue me a gun.
Right.
So I think they're just fucking bullshitting on that. But yes, part of it says an increase in abortions may negatively affect the growth of state and local revenues over time. Which, did you consider that the fetus would be a taxpayer? Right. Just like so fucking funny. Like, don't we all dream of having kids that will one day contribute to the tax base? And they're just, when you're playing catch with your son out in your yard, Trey, you're just daydreaming about how one day he can contribute to a 0.25 cent sales tax to build the new baseball stadium.
Yep, that's what it's all about.
Fuck. So that's part of it. He also has the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration, which oversees licensing for healthcare facilities and manages the state's Medicaid program. They put up a website full of lies with baseless political attacks on Amendment 4, including the above stuff we were talking about, which they're also running TV and radio ads for. But they're also lying about the current state of women's health and healthcare in Florida. Like, because you write an exception into the law does not mean it exists. Because saying you have to get 2 doctors and a judge or whatever to sign off on something, what if you get the wrong doctor or the wrong judge? You don't have access. Right. The woman doesn't have access to that right if she still has to get approval from a third, fourth, fifth party to have the right.
Mm-hmm. Most of whom are probably dudes.
Yes,
along
obviously.
the way. Yeah.
So when they run these ads saying that, well, there are exceptions for the life of the mother, it's sort of true, but they're also sort of fucking lying. Like, let me give you a couple examples, all right? There's a group called Physicians for Human Rights. They interviewed a bunch of doctors about their experience dealing with Florida's new legal regime. All right. This is a doctor talking about a patient with terminal pancreatic cancer who learned she was pregnant during a PET scan. It took more than a week for that doctor to get the specific documentation that would justify a health exception under Florida's ban, then arranged for an abortion at a hospital that could accommodate her specific medical risks, which was a 4-hour drive away. All right. Pancreatic cancer is not something you can wait a week for treatment for.
No, my dad died of pancreatic cancer. It's absolutely brutal. It's, maybe the worst one. It's definitely one of the worst ones. And yeah, you can't, there's no time. Like, time
Right.
is definitely as a finite resource for sure when you're dealing with that.
It's as close as a cancer that can come to a bullet to the head, basically.
Yep, it's true.
So another doctor talked about being hamstrung by unnecessary paperwork while trying to treat a patient experiencing a premature rupture of a membrane, which is like a routine emergency but can be fatal if you don't treat it. So this is the way this doctor described the situation. He's like, quote, "Let us roll in with a brochure of state paperwork. Let us start filling it all out together because even though you know what you want, we have to do all this paperwork. There is still a delay that occurs with all of this that seems unnecessary in a situation where a delay could potentially increase the chance of infection. The party of small government in Florida has turned emergency rooms into the fucking DMV. All right. And medicine is not something that waits.
Right.
So yeah, I just like they're so full of shit on
And
this
you
stuff.
can't just go ahead and do it. Like doctors can't just, like, they'd be putting their careers and licenses and stuff at risk, right? So just like, do what the patient needs to be done, just because it needs to be done. I'm saying, like,
Right.
they can't, they have to follow these rules, or,
Uh-huh.
or they are threatened, which is
Some motivated prosecutor finds another doctor who says you didn't actually need to do it. Now you're going to fucking jail.
right.
So, like, what risks are you willing to take? I mean, I wish people were braver in general, but I understand not wanting to go to prison for just doing your job.
Right.
So, a couple months ago, I remember reading that, like, people who signed the petition to get Amendment 4 on the ballot had cops show up to their house to ask them if they really signed it and why they signed it. And it seemed vaguely threatening at the time, although no one could really know what he was doing it for. Well, I think now we know. Florida state government put out a report yesterday that finds fault with the signatures on the petition to get Amendment 4 on the ballot. Basically, they're saying a bunch of signatures don't match, which I hate signature matching, bro. My signature's not the same ever,
Right.
even when I concentrate. So, like, I don't
Mine's
know.
also illegible. You can't,
Right.
can't even tell it's me. Yeah.
That's why we have PIN numbers. Give every voter a fucking PIN number if you're that worried about it. I have a hard time look, okay. So when you sign one of these petitions, and in California they wait outside grocery stores with petitions, all right? Those people are paid, and they're paid by the signature. I expect some fraud there, right?
Yeah.
It's a shitty system. Now, I expect less fraud with left-wing causes than right-wing causes because the right-wing causes are cynically motivated and people only do it for the money. I expect less fraud with people who are doing it who actually believe it. 76% of Floridians want this ballot measure to pass, so I expect less fraud, but I would not be surprised if some signatures were fake. That being said, the petition was certified months ago. Why is DeSantis doing this now? It's not even clear that he has any sort of legal recourse because the ballots are printed.
Right. So what? What is supposed to be the outcome of that? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I imagine it's just to deter future ballot initiatives. Because, like, if you're an organization that gets things on the ballot the normal way people do by paying canvassers to get signatures, you're going to end up. He's saying we will put you in prison if one of the people you hired signs one signature wrong. So. The worst one of these to me, the DeSantis administration is now threatening criminal penalties, including jail time, against TV stations that air a 30-second TV spot in support of Amendment 4. You want to watch the banned ad, Trey?
yeah, always exciting.
That's it. That's the old news clip, Laura. If you got this one, this is an ad called Caroline, which is just a woman named Caroline speaking to camera about her experience in Florida and how other women will not have the same opportunity she had because which the treatment she got is now illegal.
When I saw the tumor on the MRI, my first thought was, am I going to be able to see my daughter again? The doctors knew if I did not end my pregnancy, I would lose my baby, I would lose my life, and my daughter would lose her mom. Florida has now banned abortion, even in cases like mine. Amendment 4 is going to protect women like me. We have to vote yes.
So that's
All right.
illegal, according to Ron DeSantis, to show that ad. Like, on what grounds? You know what I mean? Like, it's just pure. I mean, he's just tyrant shit, and he just sends them a letter. It's like, hey, I'm the governor, and I'll bust your ass if you don't do what I tell you to do, and stop airing this ad, which has been, properly placed on your networks and stuff.
Right, in a state where Nazis are marching freely with DeSantis and swastika flags because the First Amendment protects their right to free speech. He's threatening to criminal penalties against TV stations for airing this ad because he says it's a lie.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you see that? Wasn't there like a Trump boat party in Florida this week? And there was like a bunch of Nazis, people out there like getting drunk on a boat, but with swastika flags and shit. And then there's all just the regular Trump people who are partying with them. You know what I mean? And it's like, what is it? It's like if there's one Nazi at a table with 10 people,
there's 10 Nazis,
and nobody says anything about it, or nobody gets up and leaves, then there's 10 Nazis at the table or whatever. Yeah, and it's about how it goes with these MAGA rallies. But
yeah, so I'll get to their reasoning. So the main reason they say it's a lie is because, as we talked about before, there is an exception for the life of the mother in the law, right? But you can't get it, all right? You can't get it, and it's not clear that she would have been able to get one quick enough for it to matter for her. We'll get to the specifics of her case in a second, but so Floridians Protecting Freedom, which is the organization that was running this ad, says about 50 stations were airing the ad, and that all or nearly all of them received the warning, and that they've continued to air it anyway. So good for them. Fuck Ron DeSantis. The First Amendment exists for everyone, not just Nazis. Sorry, Ron. So Caroline, Rolling Stone did an interview with her. They didn't use her last name, probably because she's afraid of getting death threats. So she said she was 18 weeks pregnant when she started losing her speech. I could read a book and understand it, but the words that came out of my mouth were different. At first, I thought maybe it was pregnancy brain until it became so bad within 1 week that I was teaching a class, and it was very much like stroke symptoms. I wasn't able to talk. I wasn't able to read. I was very confused, and my sister, who's a nurse, told me to go to the hospital. She couldn't get a CT scan because out of concern for her baby, but she could get an MRI without the contrast. The results came back. They showed a large mass in the language sector of her brain. She was advised to undergo surgery, which revealed a malignant tumor, a grade 4 glioma. Forgive me, I'm using medical terms I don't understand, but the kind of brain cancer she had is the deadliest form of it. There is no cure. Treatment can only slow its progression, which is an important element here. Less than 7% of patients survive 5 years after diagnosis. So basically, she was a mother with a daughter. She desperately wanted a second kid, but she was given the choice between slightly more time with her daughter she has or dying, maybe with 2 young children.
right,
And she chose to spend time with the daughter she has. And that's a shitty choice. Maybe other people would choose differently. I don't know. That's between her and her husband and her daughter and God. Nobody else's fucking business, all right? So by the time she had her firm diagnosis, she was 21 weeks along. That was 2022, and abortion was still legal in Florida. Currently, there's a 6-week ban, so she would have to get 2 doctors to do the paperwork to approve her before she could start this procedure while she has terminal brain cancer that's rapidly progressing, all right? That fucking sucks.
yeah,
There's a reason 76% of Floridians say this shit fucking sucks and it's stupid. All right.
I mean, this is what we've talked about before on the show. We've had other cases like this that have come up that we've talked about. That when it first happened, when they repealed Roe or whatever, there were people saying like, people are going to die as a result of this, or this is like it's and it's not hypothetical, it's not theoretical, and then now it's happening. Like you see these real people that it really does matter. Where it's like they tried to act like that was never the case. It's like just a bunch of, well, I don't know, godless baby killers who can't stop having, unprotected sex and can't deal with the consequences of their actions. Like that's who they think is exclusively getting abortions or whatever, as though there's no
Right.
other,
They-
possibilities.
The concept of a person who got pregnant on purpose and wanted a second child, but then had a disastrous medical event like brain cancer happen to them in the middle of it just doesn't occur to them.
Right.
Which is probably why the government should be in your fucking business with your doctor in the first place. So, like I said, Florida's threatening to prosecute TV stations over that ad. The FCC chiefs weighed in. A woman named Jessica Rosenworcel. She said that stations should not be intimidated for airing political ads. And I just want to say this is one of those examples where there will be worse with Trump in the White House, because the FCC would probably take DeSantis' side and threaten to remove their licenses, even if DeSantis couldn't throw them in prison.
Right.
So to get to DeSantis' logic here about why the ad is illegal, one of the guy who's in charge of the Department of Health in Florida, his name's John Wilson, he said that it's categorically false to claim that, quote, current Florida law does not allow physicians to perform abortions necessary to preserve the lives and health of pregnant women. Thus, he wrote, airing the ad is, quote, dangerous to the public's health, and the health department could use its legal powers to initiate criminal proceedings. It falls under a category of law called sanitary nuisance. Basically, he's saying these lies might lead other women to not seek health care, so therefore it's dangerous. But the problem, as we've outlined, is you got to fill out a bunch of fucking, you got to get 7 doctors and 3 judges to sign forms in triplicate before you can get the fucking doctor. So then you got to hope a DA later agrees with your findings and doesn't initiate criminal procedures. Yeah, it's just circular logic. So basically, it's like the ad puts the lives of Florida women in danger and thus constitutes a crime of the kind the health department is authorized to prosecute. So it's just this is all so extremely stupid. And going back to the thing about Caroline's diagnosis being terminal, it put Floridians for Freedom or whatever, I forget, I'm blanking on the name of the organization that put out the ad right now, but they put them in this shitty position of making the point that Caroline is dying. All right? So if they got some shitty judge or district attorney who said, wait, the procedure is to save the life of the mother.
Right.
And
she's
yeah,
dying anyway.
You're not saving her
so
life.
You're not going to save her.
You're merely
She's going
prolonging
to die
it slightly.
anyway, so there's no reason to to do this.
So for which one, by that definition, you never save anyone's life.
Well, yeah.
Because we all fucking die eventually. You just get extra time. But also but you could very easily go to court and make the case that because you're not actually saving her life, she has to live out the next few months as a human incubator, looking at her time waste away on a fucking hourglass, just being a human test tube for a child she might never meet.
Right.
And this is also fucking bleak and dystopian that I honestly don't even know how to fucking think about it. But yeah, so Floridians, go vote. And please fucking, I know Rick Scott's going to win again, but God, I hope he loses the Senate race. And I hope fucking we never see Ron DeSantis again after I think he's term limited out after this term. These people are so fucking awful, man.
Yeah. And, surely there's no way that they'll progressively get worse or anything as we go forward.
No.
I mean, Republicans in general, I'm sure the next crop of MAGA candidates will be, a return to order and sanity.
Do you want to end on some fun? Or do you want to do some comments? All right.
Yeah. Well, either way. I mean, I wanted to ask you real quick.
Right.
I mean, I texted you about this earlier, and I know you said you're agnostic, but just because I've just seen it come up a lot lately. So a big part of Trump's his concept of a plan for the economy or whatever is tariffs, right? And people think he's like, no, tariffs, we make China pay tariffs, and that's good for us. We get more money or whatever, and but the American companies who import stuff they're the ones who pay the tariffs, right? And then they raise their prices to cover that they paid the tariffs. So it's just going to drive prices up. And I know it's supposed to incentivize not getting stuff from China, but it's still, even with the tariffs, can be cheaper if you raise the prices. Also, there's maybe not much better options or whatever. People still do, and then they just have to pay the tariffs, and so the price goes up, and that's really all that ends up happening, right? I mean, is that...
Right. So like you can't. The tariff is going to be paid by it's going to be paid by the company that does the importing and therefore
Right.
passed along to the consumer. Right? It's a
Right.
very simple economic prospect. And like the reason I said I'm agnostic on it is, yeah, I mean some tariffs make sense and some are stupid. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. In general, Trump's just talking about slapping a blanket, depending on what talk you hear him give. It's either a 100% or 2,000% tariff on every product coming into the United States. Now,
From everywhere or just from China?
I thought it was everywhere. Maybe it's just
Okay.
China. He was talking about Mercedes Benzes earlier. So that's German cars too, I
Yeah.
guess. Maybe he's just making up as he goes along, which wouldn't surprise me. But so yeah, sometimes a tariff might make sense if you want to make companies buy American steel and you got cheap steel coming in from somewhere else. Sure, a small tariff to make the prices competitive so China isn't undercutting American manufacturers. That can make some sense. But one reason things are cheap and why we don't have a barter economy, while we exchange goods and services, is it makes how like I don't grow my own meat, someone does it for me. The economies of scale doesn't make sense for me to spend my time raising a cow where some other guy can do it with 500 cows at a time and he makes a living and I get to eat beef, right?
Right.
It makes sense between countries too. China can make some stuff cheaper than we can make it, and it makes sense for us to buy it from China. Now, when you get too intertwined with stuff like IV bags and medical gear, when you're during a pandemic, that fucking sucks. You can't get stuff fast enough. So maybe you want to incentivize. What I'm saying is it's a big picture stuff, and it's very complicated. But some stuff we cannot grow and make in America. Like it doesn't matter how big of a tariff you slap on fucking bananas, we can't replace it with American products. You're just gonna have $4 bananas.
Right.
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 So the clip you sent me where he did an economic forum speech today where he mostly talked about immigration because he just weaves every question back to it. But this guy from the Wall Street Journal, I think, or Bloomberg, I forget
Bloomberg.
which.
It's Bloomberg's editor-in-chief, I think. I can't remember his name, but
Yeah, so he was arguing with Trump because he's an old school conservative. I mean, he likes free trade and money, right? And he was trying to talk about how dumb this tariffs idea is and how it would damage the economy and all this. And Trump basically called him an idiot because hey, you've been doing this for 25 years. You know the tariffs are great, and the whole crowd hooted like baboons.
right. You're right. Exactly.
And you got a bunch of people cheering for the concept of tariffs. The same people who basically threatened to overthrow the government over 5% inflation are cheering for $45 T-shirts at Walmart. And I'm fucking losing my mind. I'm like, what do you people want?
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. I guess they just hear him say, tariffs good. And they're like, see, tariffs are good. And that's as far as it goes. Laura, if you want to put that comment back up there, you can. That's one of the reasons. When you first said, should we get some comments? We haven't in a long time. Sorry about that to everybody. We usually have way too much stuff to talk about. I didn't know if producer Laura, we'd never done that with her here, and I wasn't 100% sure if she, knew how to get them up there, so I didn't want to put her on the spot. But if you have any comments you want to throw up there, Laura, in the last couple of minutes, you can. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, he just says stuff. Yeah, that clip just really, it wasn't just the clip you're talking about where this economist dude is pressing him on tariffs and how they could, in fact, be bad. And Trump just responds like he's like, yeah, it must be very difficult for you, having worked in this field for 25 years, for someone to tell you that you're wrong and you don't know what you're talking about, but you're wrong and you don't know what you're talking. And then people just lose and people love it. But not only do people love it in the room, it got posted all over social media by these Trump people, blue checks on Twitter. And so I gotta stop saying that since I fucking have one again now. But anyway, the bad kind. And they're all posting that clip and saying Trump bodied this loser. Trump absolutely dunked on this dipshit, this economic forum. And it just drives me crazy because it's he's wrong. He's the one that's wrong about what he's saying, but they're just all jerking him off because he crushed it, destroyed him with facts and logic. It's just living in, like you said, an unreality, a post-truth society where factuality doesn't matter,
I need someone to explain to me, the person who believes him that China's going to pay the tariff. Explain to me why. So China ships a T-shirt into America. I use T-shirts as an example again. They manufacture them. They sell them to the wholesaler for $4 a piece or whatever. Why they're going to pay $12 a T-shirt to sell a T-shirt for $4 to a wholesaler?
Right.
If some moron who believes Trump can explain that to me, I surrender. I'll give up. I'll fucking vote for Trump.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Guess we'll see what happens, y'all. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Listen, real quick, go to TreyCrowder.com. Come see me on the road. Would really hit for me. And it would hit for you, too. I truly believe that. And support the show on Patreon, weeklyskews.com/more, or just go on Patreon and search me up, get some bonus skews in your life, support the show in the process. But either way, as long as you keep watching on Skewsdies, we'll keep showing up and running.